The discovery. Dr. Kenzo Nakamura had been staring at his coffee mug for so long that he was beginning to wonder if the dark liquid inside had achieved sentience. After 36 hours of monitoring deep space signals, everything seemed potentially alive and definitely suspicious. The graveyard shift at the Galactic Signal Monitoring Facility, GSMF, had that effect on people. "Dave," he mumbled, pushing his glasses up his nose for the 1000th time that night, "remind me again why I agreed to the night shift." The AI's response came through the speakers with its characteristic blend of British butler propriety and millennial snark. "Because, Dr. Nakamura, you said, and I quote, nothing interesting ever happens during night shift, so I can work on my novel about spacefaring squirrels in peace." That was rhetorical, Dave. "Oh, I know. But your reaction to my literal interpretations provides me with approximately 3.7 seconds of entertainment each time." Kenzo snorted and reached for his coffee, only to freeze mid-motion as an alert flashed across his primary screen. The coffee mug dropped from his suddenly limp fingers, shattering on the floor. "Dave, are you seeing this? If you're referring to the coffee stain that will definitely violate laboratory cleanliness protocols, then yes. If you're referring to the signal pattern that just lit up our deep space array like a Christmas tree having an existential crisis, also yes." Kenzo's fingers flew across the holographic keyboard, pulling up multiple analysis windows. "This can't be right. The signal structure, it's too perfect." "Define too perfect," Dave prompted, his usual sarcasm replaced by genuine curiosity. "Look at these intervals, the precision. This isn't random space noise or even a pulsar. This is engineered." Kenzo swallowed hard. "This is a message. A message that somehow managed to reach us through our most sensitive deep space monitoring equipment, specifically designed to detect signals that might indicate intelligent life," Dave mused. "How inconvenient. There goes your quiet night of anthropomorphic rodent fiction writing." The signal continued to strengthen, its pattern becoming clearer with each passing moment. Kenzo's excitement mixed with a growing sense of unease. Something about the message structure seemed almost urgent. Alarmed. "Dave, start waking up the rest of the team and get me a secure line to the director." "Already done, although I should warn you Director Chen's mood rating drops by approximately 47% when awakened before 6 a.m. Would you like me to prepare a soothing playlist for the call?" "Not now, Dave." Kenzo's eyes remained fixed on the screens as more data poured in. "Something tells me we're about to have much bigger problems than an angry director." As if in response to his words, the signal surged, and new patterns began emerging in the data stream, patterns that made Kenzo's blood run cold. "Oh my," Dave commented, his artificial voice unusually subdued. "That's not good at all, is it? 3 hours, 5 emergency meetings, and enough coffee to drown a small whale later." The Deep Space Monitoring Station's main lab had transformed into what Dave helpfully termed organized chaos with a side of nervous breakdown. Dr. Nakamura stood at the center of the storm, surrounded by holographic displays showing various aspects of the signal analysis. His usually neat appearance had devolved into what could kindly be described as mad scientist chic, complete with wildly disheveled hair and a coffee-stained lab coat. The team had grown to include Dr. Raj Patel, their cryptography expert, who had arrived wearing mismatched shoes in his haste, and Dr. Maria Torres, their xenolinguistics specialist, whose face grew increasingly pale as the translations began flowing in. "The encryption is unlike anything we've ever seen," Raj announced, gesturing wildly at his screens. "It's like someone took every encryption method we know, mixed them in a blender, and then had a quantum computer play Jenga with the results." "Thank you for that thoroughly scientific description," Dave chimed in. "Shall we add, put in a blender, to our official report?" "The point is," Raj continued, shooting a glare at the nearest speaker, "we shouldn't be able to crack this. Not with our current technology." "But the signal is decoding itself," Kenzo finished, rubbing his temples. "It's like it wants to be read," Maria interjected, her voice tight with tension. More like it needs to be read. This isn't just a message, it's a warning. Multiple warnings actually, from different species. Dave's avatar, a simple blue sphere, pulsed thoughtfully on the main screen. Current count stands at 7 distinct alien civilizations contributing to this signal. All of them seem rather insistent about something. The main display filled with streams of decoded text, each message different in structure and style, but all carrying the same underlying theme. Containment protocols failed. Species, human. Threat level, existential. Status, universe's final mistake. Well, Dave commented into the stunned silence, I suppose this explains why we never got invited to any of the cool galactic parties. The revelation. The discovery of the signal had set off a chain reaction throughout the scientific community. Within hours, every major space monitoring facility around the globe had confirmed receiving the same transmission. The message wasn't just being broadcast to Earth, it was being deliberately targeted at every human listening post, space telescope, and monitoring station. Dr. Patel stood before the main display, his fingers trembling slightly as he pointed to a series of coordinates streaming across the screen. They're not just random locations. They're everywhere. Hundreds of civilizations all around us, all watching. Watching in hiding, Kenzo muttered, scanning through the data. The signal contains records, historical data. They've been monitoring us for centuries, coordinating some kind of containment effort. Maria nodded, her fingers dancing across her tablet. According to these translations, they tried everything, subtle manipulation of our development, redirecting asteroids to miss Earth, even attempting to make our sun slightly less stable to slow our progress. Attempting to destabilize our sun? Dave sounded almost impressed. That seems a tad excessive for a species that still can't agree on whether pineapple belongs on pizza. It gets better, Maria continued, her voice taking on a slightly hysterical edge. They list our crimes against the natural order of the universe. Apparently, we're the only species that deliberately consumes substances known to be toxic for entertainment purposes, intentionally jumps from high places with primitive fabric devices for amusement, and willingly keeps apex predators in their homes while speaking to them as if they were infant members of their own species. In our defense, Dave offered, cats are very convincing when they want to be. A new alert blared through the lab as the signal shifted, revealing another layer of data. A series of complex mathematical equations began scrolling across the screens. Oh, Dave said, his usual snark completely gone. Oh my. Those aren't just coordinates. That's a map, a real-time map of every advanced civilization in our galactic neighborhood. And they're moving. Moving where? Asked Raj, though from his expression, he already knew the answer. Away from us, Kenzo answered grimly. As fast as they possibly can. The implications of this revelation were staggering. Humanity wasn't just being watched, they were being actively avoided by what appeared to be the entire galactic community. The question was, why? Dr. Torres spent the next several hours deep diving into the historical records embedded in the signal. What she found was both fascinating and bizarre. Look at this, she called out, projecting a new set of data onto the main screen. They've been documenting what they call human anomalies for centuries. Listen to this entry from their observation log. Species exhibits inexplicable behavior patterns. Deliberately seeks out dangerous situations for entertainment. Creates artificial challenges to overcome when no natural challenges exist. Attaches emotional significance to inanimate objects. Continues activities known to cause physical discomfort for fun. Shows affection toward clearly dangerous organisms. Persists in face of certain failure with no logical reason. They don't just fear us, Maria concluded. They're completely baffled by us. Dave's avatar spun slowly as he processed this information. So, to summarize, we're essentially the galaxy's equivalent of that one person at a party who keeps doing increasingly dangerous stunts while everyone else watches in horror, unable to look away. More than that, Kenzo said, a strange light in his eyes. We're the species that took everything they threw at us and turned it into an opportunity. Every obstacle, every containment measure, every attempt to slow us down, we adapted and thrived. The team spent the next few hours going through more of the alien observations, each revelation more incredible than the last. The galactic community had documented everything from humanity's first use of tools to their latest space exploration efforts, all with a mixture of fascination and mounting horror. Here's my favorite entry, Raj announced, barely containing his laughter. Species discovered nuclear fission. Instead of immediate self-destruction as predicted, they used it to make glowing watches and medical treatments. Probability calculations must be flawed. Or this one, Maria added. Attempts to discourage deep-sea exploration by introducing more dangerous marine life resulted in humans creating stronger submarines and classification system for cool water monsters. As they delved deeper into the archives, a pattern began to emerge. The alien civilizations hadn't just been trying to contain humanity, they had been trying to understand them. And their failure to do so had apparently driven them to their current state of panic. A new alert suddenly flashed across all screens, causing everyone to fall silent. The signal had changed again, but this time it was different. This wasn't just data or observations, it was live communication. They're sending a new message, Dave announced, his voice uncharacteristically serious. And this time, they're expecting a response. The lab fell silent as the new transmission began to decode itself. Whatever came next would determine humanity's place in the galaxy, whether they would be seen as a threat to be contained or a civilization worthy of contact. Well, Dave said into the tense silence, at least we know why we never got any responses to those messages we've been broadcasting into space. Apparently, we're the galactic equivalent of that neighbor everyone avoids at the mailbox. The response. The emergency global conference looked like what would happen if you combined a UN meeting with a chaotic family video call during the holidays. World leaders appeared in various states of dress and awareness, depending on which time zone had been rudely awakened for this unprecedented gathering. If the President of France could please unmute himself, Dave announced with barely concealed amusement, and perhaps remove the cat filter, though I must say the whiskers do complement your tie. Kenzo stood before his camera, trying to maintain his composure as he presented the findings to the most powerful people on Earth. The American president was clearly pretending to be awake while clutching what had to be their fifth cup of coffee, while the British Prime Minister had apparently decided that pants were optional for virtual meetings. As you can see from the data, Kenzo continued, sharing his screen, multiple alien civilizations consider us the galactic equivalent of that neighbor nobody wants to invite to the homeowners association meetings but can't figure out how to evict. Dr. Nakamura, the Chinese premier interrupted, perhaps we could maintain a more serious tone. Breaking news, screamed the Indian Prime Minister's microphone at painful volume. Sorry, wrong window. Please continue. Dave helpfully adjusted the audio levels while adding, I've taken the liberty of creating a drinking game based on how many times someone accidentally mutes themselves. Current record holder, Germany at 7 times. The German Chancellor's screen briefly lit up with a rude gesture before going dark again. The point is, Kenzo pressed on, we're facing a situation where advanced alien civilizations are literally fleeing our section of space. They've abandoned containment protocols that have apparently been in place since humans first figured out how to make pointy sticks. And what exactly are we supposed to do about this? Asked the Brazilian president, who had given up all pretense and was eating breakfast on camera. Send them a strongly worded letter. Actually, Dr. Torres cut in, we should probably respond somehow. They're watching us receive this message. Our reaction could be crucial. I vote we rickroll them, muttered someone who quickly pretended their microphone was malfunctioning. The Russian president's connection chose that moment to freeze in what Dave described as an expression that will haunt my digital dreams. What we need, the Australian Prime Minister began before being interrupted by what sounded like 1,000 birds attacking their microphone. Bloody cockies. Get off the satellite dish. Kenzo watched in mounting despair as the meeting devolved into crosstalk, technical issues, and what appeared to be an impromptu debate about whether humanity should apologize for existing or send a message asserting their right to be the universe's chaos agents. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dave suddenly announced, his voice cutting through the chaos, "while you've been discussing whether to apologize to the universe, I've detected new movement in the signal. The civilizations aren't just fleeing anymore. They're gathering." That got everyone's attention. "Gathering where?" asked the Japanese Prime Minister, speaking for the first time. Based on these coordinates, Dave paused for what Kenzo knew was purely dramatic effect, approximately 2 light-years from Pluto. "I believe they're setting up what humans would call a parent-teacher conference, and we're the problem child." Silence fell over the virtual meeting. Then the Canadian Prime Minister's cat walked across their keyboard, accidentally sharing a screen full of cat meme tabs. "Well," said the UN Secretary-General, pinching the bridge of their nose, "at least we're consistently living up to their expectations of us." "Should I prepare a response?" Dave asked. "I have several options ranging from dignified denial to chaos monkey throws diplomatic banana." Kenzo looked at the grid of faces on his screen, each showing various degrees of concern, determination, and in at least 3 cases, possible indigestion. "Actually," he said slowly, "I think I might have an idea." The next few hours were spent in intense discussion, as Kenzo and his team worked to craft a response that would address the aliens' concerns while staying true to humanity's unique nature. The challenge was finding a way to communicate that their perceived flaws were actually their greatest strengths. "Look at their observations," Kenzo explained to the assembled leaders. "Every time they tried to contain us, we adapted. Every obstacle they put in our path, we turned into an opportunity. They see chaos where we see possibility. They see danger where we see challenge. They see irrationality where we see courage." "So what you're suggesting," the German Chancellor said, having finally mastered their mute button, "is that we should embrace our reputation as the galaxy's chaos agents?" "Not exactly," Kenzo replied, adjusting his glasses. "I'm suggesting we show them why that chaos might be exactly what the universe needs." The message. The response team worked through the night, crafting what would become humanity's first official communication with the galactic community. They decided to take an unconventional approach. Instead of defending themselves against the aliens' accusations, they would embrace them. "Dear concerned galactic neighbors," Dave read aloud from the draft, his tone suggesting he was thoroughly enjoying this. "Thank you for your recent communication regarding our species' apparent violation of universal common sense. We appreciate the time and effort you've invested in attempting to contain what you perceive as our chaotic nature. However, we feel there may have been some misunderstandings we'd like to address." The message went on to systematically address each of the aliens' major concerns, but not in the way they might have expected. "Regarding our tendency to seek out unnecessary dangers. We call this innovation. Every time you, regarding our tendency to seek out unnecessary dangers. We call this innovation. Every time you introduced a new obstacle, we developed new solutions. Your attempts to make our sun less stable led to advances in fusion research. Your dangerous marine life specimens encouraged deep-sea exploration technologies. You didn't create problems for us, you provided opportunities for growth. Concerning our irrational attachment to dangerous organisms. What you call apex predators, we call cats and dogs. They've helped us develop empathy, understanding, and the ability to cooperate with species very different from ourselves. These skills might prove useful in future interstellar relations, don't you think? About our deliberate consumption of toxic substances for pleasure. We prefer to think of it as developing tolerance and adaptation mechanisms. Yes, we invented hot sauce. We also invented antacids. Progress comes in many forms. On the subject of our persistence in clearly futile endeavors. We have a saying, nothing is impossible, the impossible just takes longer. This trait you find so baffling. It's how we achieved powered flight, space travel, and the ability to decode your message in the first place. As for our chaotic and unpredictable nature, we prefer to call it creativity. While you've been watching us with horror, we've been watching you with curiosity. You have technology we can barely comprehend, yet you've never used it in ways we haven't thought of. Perhaps what you need isn't less chaos, but a little more. The message concluded with an unexpected proposal. Instead of running away, why not stay and talk? We promise to keep our chaos at manageable levels during negotiations. We'll even keep our cats indoors and refrain from showing you our hot sauce collection until you're ready. P.S. Yes, we know about the asteroid deflection program. We've been using the altered trajectories for orbital slingshot calculations. Thanks for that. As Dave finished reading, the room fell silent. Even the AI seemed to be waiting for a reaction. Well, said the UN Secretary General, it's certainly unique. It's perfect, Dr. Torres interjected. Look at their observation patterns. They've been studying us for centuries, trying to understand why we don't behave like their predictive models say we should. This response doesn't just acknowledge their concerns, it challenges their entire perspective on what constitutes rational behavior. And if they don't like it, someone asked. Then they can keep running, Kenzo replied with a slight smile. But something tells me they won't. They're too curious about us. Why else would they have watched us for so long? All those containment efforts, Raj added, they could have tried to eliminate us at any point. Instead, they watched and documented. That's not the behavior of beings who truly want to avoid us, that's the behavior of scientists studying a fascinating specimen. Fascinating specimen? Dave interjected. I believe the technical term they used was universe's final mistake. Sometimes mistakes lead to the greatest discoveries, Kenzo said. I think it's time we showed them that. The message was transmitted using the same frequencies the aliens had used to contact Earth. Now all they could do was wait for a response, and hope that humanity's unique approach to diplomacy wouldn't cause a galactic incident. The resolution. The response came faster than anyone expected. 3 days after transmitting their message, the deep space arrays lit up again. This time, however, the signal was different. They're laughing, Dr. Torres announced, staring at her translation matrix in disbelief. At least, I think that's what these signal patterns indicate. It's either laughter or their systems are having a collective malfunction. Given our effect on their previous attempts at logical communication, either is equally possible, Dave commented. The alien response was as unprecedented as humanity's message had been. Instead of a unified transmission from their gathered fleet, individual civilizations began sending separate messages, each with their own unique perspective on humanity's response. The Zoraxians, a species that had been responsible for the solar manipulation attempts, admitted that they had been intrigued by humanity's persistent ability to derive benefit from apparent catastrophe. They expressed particular interest in humanity's development of solar panel technology as a response to their attempts to reduce solar output. The Moravians, who had introduced various predatory species to Earth's oceans, sent what appeared to be a formal request for information about the human practice of naming dangerous aquatic creatures based on aesthetic appeal. They seemed particularly puzzled by the term murder torpedo being used affectionately. Even the Quantum Collective, the civilization that had coordinated most of the containment efforts, acknowledged that their previous assessment might have been unnecessarily rigid in its definition of acceptable developmental patterns. They want to talk, Kenzo announced to the hastily reconvened global conference. All of them. Not just about containment or control, but about everything. They're fascinated by us. Fascinated might be an understatement, Dave interjected. The Zoraxians have already submitted 2,947 questions about human cuisine, with particular emphasis on why we deliberately cultivate bacteria to make cheese. They seem equally horrified and impressed. The next few weeks saw an unprecedented exchange of information. The aliens, having finally accepted that humanity wasn't going to behave according to their predictive models, began asking questions about everything from human art to engineering to social structures. They're particularly interested in our ability to form emotional attachments to artificial constructs, Dave reported, sounding slightly smug. Apparently, the concept of naming a robotic vacuum cleaner and treating it like a pet is completely alien to them. No pun intended. The global response to the revelation of alien life was surprisingly calm, perhaps because humanity's first major interstellar diplomatic success involved essentially trolling the entire galactic community into accepting them as they were. You know what the best part is? Dr. Torres said one evening, as they reviewed the latest batch of alien communications. They're starting to change. The Moravians have reported incidents of their younger generation attempting to keep small, non-dangerous creatures as companions. The Quantum Collective is experimenting with introducing controlled amounts of randomness into their decision-making processes. We're infecting them with chaos, Dave observed cheerfully. Like a very persistent, very friendly virus. The final breakthrough came 3 months after the initial contact. The galactic community, in what they described as an unprecedented deviation from standard protocols, invited Earth to send representatives to a formal meeting. The location? The same gathering point where they had initially fled to discuss the human problem. They want us to teach them, Kenzo explained to the UN Assembly. Not despite our chaos, but because of it. They've realized that their perfect order, their predictable patterns, have led to a kind of stagnation. They want to understand how we take random chances and turn them into opportunities. They want to learn how to be more human, someone asked incredulously. No, Kenzo replied with a smile. They want to learn how to be more themselves, but with the courage to embrace uncertainty. We're not the universe's final mistake, we're its first successful experiment in controlled chaos. I've already prepared a curriculum, Dave announced. Lesson 1. Why naming your spaceship is scientifically proven to improve its performance. Lesson 2. The evolutionary advantages of petting dangerous things. As humanity prepared for its first official galactic conference, the alien civilizations continued to watch them. But now, instead of horror and concern, their observations were filled with curiosity and even a touch of admiration. The species that had been classified as the universe's final mistake had become its most interesting teacher. You know what this means, don't you? Dave asked Kenzo as they prepared the first diplomatic mission. We're going to have to explain memes to them eventually. One step at a time, Dave, Kenzo replied, adjusting his glasses. Let's start with explaining why we put tiny sweaters on dogs. The concept of memes might cause another galactic panic. And so humanity took its place among the stars, not by changing who they were, but by being exactly what they had always been, beautifully, wonderfully, and purposefully chaotic. The universe, it turned out, would never be the same. And that was exactly what it needed.